Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kazcast episode 26. Just got off the phone with Sasha. Sasha runs an Instagram page called Zero Ego Board Reviews, and he reviews surfboards. And some of you may know I'm a massive fan of surfing. I love surfing as an activity. It's one of my favourite things to do physically, and I can't think of a better sport or physical activity that makes me feel as good as surfing does. Just getting in the water, reconnecting with nature and your body, it's an incredible feeling, and it's a lot of fun. It makes you smile, makes you laugh, and it's just a great activity to do. So for some time now, I've been looking for somebody to come onto the podcast to speak about surfing, and I couldn't have asked for a better person than Sasha. He's so passionate about surfing as an activity. He's so inspirational and passionate about surfing and how it's it's available for anybody. He's a real advocate of getting people into surfing of any age, and not being scared to give it a go. Sasha's page is also great for those who are at a level, let's say an intermediate level, who, there's a lot of beginner courses out there. There's a lot of surf schools you can go to, but not a lot for intermediate. So if you're listening to this and you're somebody who is surfing and plateaued a little bit, then I'd recommend going over to Sasha's Instagram page, which is zero_ego_board_reviews, and he shares some tips and some ideas on surfing and technique and how you can improve, and it's just a really, really cool page. So if you guys give that a follow, you definitely won't be disappointed. We spoke about as well as surfing and how great it is, where you can access some great waves around the UK, and Sasha tells some stories about his trip to Indonesia and how he first become very passionate and fell in love with surfing. And yeah, we covered a lot of topics and it was a lot of fun. So I know you guys are going to enjoy it. And please share this episode, as I believe it will be very beneficial to a lot of people. So please enjoy episode 26 with Sasha.
There are no constraints on the human mind. No walls around the human spirit. No barriers to our progress except those we ourselves erect. Make your life a story worth telling.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Kazcast episode 26. Today we're on the phone with Sasha talking everything surfing, so I really appreciate your time, Sasha. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you, Callum. Really excited to be here. I love talking about surfing. You probably won't be able to shut me up.
Perfect, mate. That's always a good guest, someone that likes talking, so yeah, appreciate it, mate. So really sort of the opening thing that I wanted to ask you was, what are your earliest memories of surfing? Because, especially in like the UK and in England, people, it's not a sport that is very well known or many people do. And obviously if you live down in Cornwall, a little bit different. But yeah, what are your earliest memories of surfing? Was it something that you watched sort of on TV as a kid and wanted to try? And yeah, how did surfing first come about?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one for me. So I'm 45 and I started surfing at 19.
Yeah.
And I live near Reading, and so that's like 3.5 hours away from surf. And there was no surf on TV at all when I was a kid. And obviously now you've got all the internet stuff that you can see, but back then you didn't. So no, really, I didn't grow up with it at all. My dad was really into football and stuff like that, and I just couldn't kick a ball to save my life. And then I found myself into like sort of individual sports like skateboarding and stuff like that. And when I was about 16, I had a dream. Honestly, I had a dream, and I was surfing. And I'd never surfed before, and I actually was surfing along the green wave and did a turn, and I remember that feeling. And when I actually got to do that, not even the first time I surfed, but probably about 3 or 4 years later, when I could actually properly ride a green wave and turn, it was exactly the same feeling as I dreamt.
Wow.
So that's a really weird one, but yeah, so no. But then when I went travelling with a friend of mine after A levels, a guy called Alan Jones, which was quite funny at the time because Alan Jones was was a choir boy.
Yeah, is that walking in the air guy?
Walking in the air. Exactly,
yeah, that's right.
Oh mate, he hated that. Anyway, so we went travelling. We did a round the world trip, and we ended up in Indonesia. And we heard about this island where there was waves called Nias. And actually Nias is like a really serious, hardcore surfing destination, even up to today. We had no idea. So we went there, and all the surfers were really, really annoyed because the waves were tiny. Okay. And for us, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in that month, we were there for a month, and it was virtually like a wave machine because it's a point break. It hits exactly the same point.
Okay.
Goes along. You don't have to get killed by sets. You can paddle out to the side and not get smashed. And I think we learned more in that month than I probably did for the next sort of 5 years.
Yeah.
Coming back to the UK.
I bet.
So yeah, that's how I started to surf.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, just having that wave machine type of experience, it's that consistency, isn't it? Because
exactly
in the UK, people can try it for the first time and get out there. And if you get out there and it's a really rough day, you can instantly get put off, can't you? You think, oh no, surfing's not for me. It's just too much hard work. I'm getting wiped out. The waves are too scary. So yeah, that must have been a really, really nice experience. So you were hitting those waves, and like, how were you feeling when you was hitting that? As you was improving, did you instantly know, oh wow, this is like a great feeling surfing. I can see myself pursuing this after I get back from Indonesia.
Yeah, no, exactly. I just absolutely fell in love with it. And what we were doing on those small waves was because, we just didn't have the skills. So what we were doing was we were ending up taking those waves on our stomach, right?
Yeah.
And then getting up. But the wave was still clean. So that's something you don't really get in the UK, because they were so perfect and breaking along the reef.
Yeah.
And so, we'd take it on the stomach and then get up, and then you still, we'd actually be surfing the green wave. I think a lot of people take a long time to get to the point where they're surfing green waves as beginners here in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's really quite hard. But things are massively changing with wave pools. I guess we'll end up talking about that in a little bit. But yeah, that's going to be a game changer.
Cool. So in those early days, how were you improving? Did you have any sort of like strategy? Like, did you have someone you knew that was very good that gave you some tips, or were you literally just 19, 20 and just getting stuck in?
Mate, it was a nightmare, really. It was apart from that month in Indonesia, which was amazing.
Yeah.
As I said, I got back to England and I thought I could surf, and I literally remember paddling out at Perranporth in Cornwall.
Yeah.
And not even being able to get out the back and going, I don't know what's going on here, And then it was just a real slog of going to the ocean, paddling out, sometimes not getting out the back, sometimes not getting one wave. And for some weird reason, still up for it and still feeling good mentally, not about the surfing itself, but about being in the ocean and about being absolutely exhausted and about being mentally clear after coming back. And I think that's really what hooked me. So now that I can actually surf, I mean, it's just sort of exponential in terms of my love for it.
Yeah, awesome. So when people were first trying to learn to surf, and when you were first trying, you look back, what are the sort of the main sort of biggest challenges that people come across when when first learning to surf? What are those hurdles and like those
Yeah.
milestones that you have to hit in order to improve along the way?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, look, a lot of people, their first surf is a lesson, and that's fine, and that's the right thing to do, and that's probably not probably that is quite constructive and useful. But then very quickly they'll have one or two of those, and it won't even be like a ski holiday where you go every day for a week, right? You'll just go once, won't you? And then you've done a surf lesson, and then if you're really into it, you might either buy a board or you'll hire a board, right? And then very quickly what people end up doing is buying something that's wrong for them, and it typically is something that is just too low volume, because they're excited about sort of progressing to something that sort of more resembles like a quotation marks a surfer, and back in the day when I was learning, we didn't even have volume. So for those people who don't know what volume is, I mean it's quite self-explanatory now, but I mean we had no idea what it was how much volume is in the board. So it's liters, it's based on liters. So if you have a very thin board and it's a very short board, you're going to have a very low volume. If you have a long board and it's thicker, you're going to have a high volume. But if you don't know what that volume is, even a board that seems reasonably big, if it's quite narrow and not that thick, can have a very low volume. And so, people, I saw it all the time, and I was doing it myself. I was riding boards that were too low volume, even when I could surf. Mm-hmm. And that meant that I wasn't surfing well. So even now, I still see a lot of people who've been surfing for years. They can paddle into a wave, and they're probably quite brave because they have a local spot that they're quite used to, and they can take off on some nasty, some quite gnarly waves near rocks or whatever. But they still can't really surf. They're just going along the wave. So it's interesting, but volume is a massive thing now. Even surf shops now are going, well, it's not all about volume, and that's true. It's not all about volume. It's where it's placed, etc. But I would say as a beginner, it is a lot about volume.
Definitely, because by having the volume, it gives you I suppose it gives you room for error. Like if you haven't got the board like in the exact right position,
exactly.
If you've got that. Because people want that short, they look and they watch, like Kelly Slater or whoever, like they watch pro surfers and they've all got these tiny little boards, and it's more of a style thing. But like I say, you've got to put the hours in, and and get the right board and the right board for you. What about with different boards? What about for people that aren't sure, that might have heard terms like. Like a short board, long board, mini mal, like fun board. You got the fin board. So, how do people best match up with these boards in terms of your size and weight? What if someone's listening to this and looking to try surfing? What would you recommend? Like a good board to go for?
Yeah, I mean that is that's a massive question, and obviously everyone's different. But what I would say is speak to a good shop, and if it's good if they spend their time talking to you and it sounds reasonable, and they're not rushing to get you onto something. But of course, you would start off, and not everyone does, and I never did, and I regret that. I started off on a shortboard partly because of NIAS, which was probably the right thing to do. But then after that was, I got back to England and just wanted to ride a shortboard, and that was a mistake. I would definitely start on a longer board. You start off hiring a foamy, a board made of foam. Personally, though, I find them quite tricky to surf. I don't think they're very balanced. So the sooner, if it was my friend, I would sort of say, look, buy yourself a hard board after you know what you're doing a little bit, after you've done it a few times. But they just seem to be a bit more stable, but something that's plenty of length, not like a full, really long board, because they're quite hard to maneuver as well. But like a sort of 8-foot board, for example.
Okay, that'd be
That's sort of that as a beginner, and then progress downwards slowly, but really slowly. And I've definitely made mistakes where I've surfed really performance boards before I was ready, and then then Firewire came. So Firewire is a company that had a new technology back a while ago, and they're still going strong. They're now owned by Slater, Kelly Slater, Slater Designs, and there was a guy called Dan Mann. That's honestly his name.
Cool name.
Dan Mann, and he made some crazy, they didn't look crazy, but some amazing designs. And one was called the Dominator, and I think the Dominator was pretty much what enabled people who already thought they could surf but couldn't surf.
Okay.
They learned to surf on the Dominator, which looked like a shortboard but had loads of volume and was extremely forgiving.
Okay.
And that is something that you really need to look at and ask the shop about, what boards could progress me, but that are still super forgiving and that I can paddle easily.
Yeah, cool. So what would you say those those sort of key fundamental skills that sort of you need to have down? If you're making that jump from like a beginner to like an intermediate surfer, and it's tricky to actually describe that and put that exactly into words. Where you go from beginner to intermediate to an expert on something. But how would what skills would you say you have to have down? Because in my experience of surfing, which is a small amount, but something I really, really enjoy doing, is one thing people struggle with, and to make that jump up to is actually having the confidence to get out the back and not just ride those white water waves that are crashing coming in, and you're laying on your front and you're paddling, you can see and hear the wave coming, and then you stand up. It's having the confidence to go beyond that. So yeah, what advice would you give for somebody to go to that next level where they're not just waiting for those white water to come towards them, but they're actually paddling out, getting further out the back, and and surfing some really good waves?
Yeah, got it. So yeah, there's a number of things. One thing about getting out the back, so what we talk about getting out the back, which is getting through the white water to the point where the waves are not breaking. Yeah. And then you can sit there, as you know, and wait for the right wave to come and the one you want to choose. So, if it's a big one and you don't want to take it, fine. If it's, if it's the right size, it's fine. That's quite hard to do. And if you look at experienced surfers, they're not normally battling out loads of white water lines. They just know where to paddle, where the rip tide comes out. Yeah. They'll use a rip to get out. They'll wait for the sets to die down before they paddle out. And so it's more about knowledge than it is about brute strength. A lot of sort of beginners, intermediates think, I just can't do it because I'm not as strong as the better surfers, and that's definitely partly true, but it's not purely true. It's more about knowledge. You can't really fight the sea. Yeah. You can't really fight the ocean. So, asking the lifeguard where to paddle out, where the rip is, where this is, where that is, and also just looking at someone like, even now, if I'm somewhere on a new spot, I'll check out someone who clearly knows what they're doing. Yeah. I'll see where they paddle out.
Follow them.
And I'll follow them.
Yeah, definitely.
So all of those things, and then when I'm out the back, especially on something a bit weird and a bit heavy, some sort of more sort of reefy style things, I say, so where are you paddling back into? And people will more often than not give you the answer. They've got to be pretty weird not to actually
yeah, exactly.
Not to answer you
unless you're in some sort of like competition with, or somebody feels like they're in competition with you, because like it's kind of that community is. If sort of that surf community, and I know you said you used to do a bit of skateboarding. I think it all fits into that same sort of thing. I spoke to a guy who was Mike Mullen, who was a BMXer, and we spoke briefly about it. And it's kind of that extreme sport, that alternate, not a mainstream sport, like BMX, surfing, and skateboarding, etc. I think it's got its own community of really cool people, and it's got a style about it that definitely draws people in. It's about that lifestyle, isn't it, with surfing? Not just about riding the waves. It's the whole thing that surfing brings to your life.
I think it does. Weirdly though, for some reason I don't really know. I feel more like, even though I can't skate well, I feel, and I surf a lot better than I skate, I feel more like a skater than a surfer. I don't really know why.
Yeah.
But I think the community, the skate world is even bigger, and I think it's because you can sit around a bowl and all watch each other, and then tap your boards when someone does something good.
Yeah.
And with the surf,
it's a little bit harder to do that. Getting wiped out.
And you are competing for waves. And so that and obviously with wave pools that then again changes. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, awesome. You said earlier about when you first started, sort of how exhausting it was when you went out in Perranporth that day and you paddled out. From my experience of surfing and getting in the ocean, that is just one of the most, the greatest things about it is just feeling that connection with nature, and you're back to basics. There's you and your board and you're in the sea, and there's something really, really great about that, and the challenge of it. So, like in your experience and what you've seen, what do you feel like those main, the main health benefits as well that surfing brings?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The interestingly, in terms of health benefits, in terms of fitness, and I'll get to mental health in a moment, because I think that's definitely the biggest one. Yeah. But in terms of fitness, that is a bit of a challenge. And I was speaking to a skater recently who's kind of my age, and he said, I was surfing, but I gave it up because I feel like skating is very instant. As soon as I get in the bowl, I can. I'm hitting the lip. Yeah. Whereas with surfing, I'm spending a 2-hour session, and I've caught 4 waves or something. Okay. And if my fitness is not up there, then that makes it very difficult. So it is a weird sport where you have to. With most sports, you can get fit as you're doing the sport. Yeah. Football, skateboarding, skiing, snowboarding. But with surfing, it is it is the sort of thing that you kind of actually need to be fit first. Yeah, already. For sure. Do you know what I mean?
People don't realise that, how hard, because, you see it and you see these guys just stand on a board going along a wave. It looks very, very easy. You just think, well, as long as my balance is okay, I'll be all right. But, the hardest bit is just, paddling out and, having the skill to get under the waves and jump over the waves. And, it's hard. It is hard work. And, I suppose you get away with it if you're a beginner and you're getting those, white water waves in and you're keeping it shallow. But if you want to improve, like you say, you have to have a good level of fitness anyway to get out there and to feel confident as well and to feel safe.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it. And, I would really strongly sort of recommend people to either talk to some sort of an instructor, maybe even get you can get one-on-one sessions. It's people don't really do it, but it's not that expensive. And it's so worth it because the instructor will just help you even get out there, Yeah. And it makes such a big difference. And obviously, in a wave pool, you can then have a totally different level of tuition, which you can be videoed and you can take pictures, and then the learning is absolutely exponential at that point. But I didn't answer your question what I was getting to, but I don't think I got to in terms of the main key milestones. Can I come?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So we talked about getting out, and that was basically saying that it's not about brute strength. Actually, it's more about knowledge. And that is a hard thing to do. So you kind of really just have to ask and educate yourself and ask people. You can't just work that out yourself. Yeah. And then in terms of the milestones, in terms of what you can do, and taking the drop on a clean wave, which I think you were alluding to, rather than just taking the white water. Yeah. It is just water. Unless you're surfing in 20 centimeters of shallow reef, just go for it. The only way to learn is to actually go head first.
Yeah, for sure.
A number of times. But, I see more people often than not paddling and not catching the wave than paddling and going head first. I think it should be 20% the other way. You should go head first 80% of the time. You will learn.
Yeah, definitely.
10 times quicker.
You have to. It's like the equivalent of not dropping in on a vert ramp for skateboarding or whatever, not taking that drop, just like pumping so you're going up and down the up and down the ramp. But it's that same thing of, in the end, like, there comes a point where if you are going to improve, you have to take that, that, I suppose it's that leap of faith, isn't it? And just be like, well, this could end horribly, but if I want to improve and I really want to become a better surfer, I'm just going to have to do it.
That's it. And if you have a slightly longer board and a wider board, it's just going to get you in a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
And also, when you stand up on that board, if you're not in a perfect position with your feet, if they're too close together, which is quite common with beginners, or they're not, balanced evenly, a bigger board will let you get away with that more.
Okay. So what would be some good advice in terms of you're in that position, you're feeling the board go up, and you're ready to pop up? But what advice would you give in terms of body position and physically, pulling that off? Some good tips.
Yeah. So no one talks about. I've looked on the internet. I've never seen anyone talk about exactly how you place your hands. So you get loads of different things. You get beginners put it dead flat in the middle of the board.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a very long board, of course, that's what you have to do. You've got no choice. But if you've got a sort of a slightly narrow board, then what do you do? Personally, there's lots of different ways of doing it. I like to have my hands on the deck, but with just my little finger off the rails if you've got a sort of slightly shorter board.
Yeah.
Because what that does is that you can still then adjust your rails if you need to as you're getting up.
Okay.
And then you've just got to paddle much harder than you think you need to, both with your hands and kicking with your feet. The kicking with the feet doesn't really do much, but what it does is give you that kind of motion forwards. I don't think it really propels you much, but it kind of just gives you that little bit of my body is in a motion to get up.
Okay. And I guess after a while it's that feel like all things or any sport, you all of a sudden the more you do something, the less you think about it, and the more you get a feel for it. You just get a feel of where you need to be.
Exactly. The only reason I'm thinking about it actually recently is because talking to my son about it and stuff like that. And then because you're right, I'd started to forget about what I was doing, which is that's a good sign when you start forgetting about what you're doing. Yeah. So then as you straighten out your arms. What a lot of people do is try and kind of do a press up or kind of do a burpee or something. But actually, if you keep your hips and your legs and your toes down, and you have your arms straight, that's pushing the whole of the board down the wave, and it gives you that 1 second where from that position you can then keep your arms still straight and just pop your feet up. It makes it a lot easier than if you kind of keep your chest down and try and lift your whole body at one time.
That makes sense.
So that's a little tip that actually might sound a bit sort of vague right now, but if you test that, like do a sort of upward dog on yoga or what do you call it?
I know what you mean, but it's just pushing your upper body up, and then slowly the rest of the body will follow, because
exactly,
and it's that
so
slow
your hips
stand
are on the board, and the rest of your legs are on the board. Exactly.
Because you see, like you say, you see some people just they're on the beach and they're just doing burpees on the board. And that's not always they go from that just laying position to that pop up as fast as possible. But
that's why you'll see a lot of the good surfers look like they're not really paddling, and the pro surfers, because what they've done is they've done a few hard paddles, then they've straightened their arms out, but they're still pressing that. The way they're driving the board is not paddling. They're pushing their momentum down, and then when they feel that the board is moving, then and that's something that just comes through experience, is then they just quickly pop their legs up at that point.
Awesome, mate. No, I appreciate that. Really, really good tip, that is. So we sort of spoke a little bit about it earlier. We spoke about the physical benefits. So what about the positive impact it can have on people's overall well-being and mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel sorry for people that don't have some sort of outlet, and people don't, and for good reasons, because they're hard working, they're busy, they've got families, they may not be in a situation financially they can do stuff. But I don't know how people go. And for example, I work in London quite often, not all the time, but quite often. I don't know how people can live there day in, day out and just not go mental. It's really hard. It's really hard. I feel for those people because they don't have a choice to be there. So for me, I have to do something to keep efficient in my life,
Yeah.
you know, and happy. So, you know, whatever that is for you, if it's stamp collecting, then fine. If it actually does it for you, great.
Yeah.
Really, it doesn't matter what it is. But for me, it's something physical, and for something in nature. And surfing, there's a few things I like doing, but surfing is by far the thing that I find most gets me closer to nature. Personally, I believe in God, and it doesn't matter whether you do or you don't, but I feel very much closer in that situation. I think a lot of surfers actually, surprisingly, if you looked at the statistics, a lot of surfers believe in God than other sports. It's quite funny, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah, but I think that I think what that is that people appreciate, you know, nature and being out there and it being so beautiful and being so
powerful,
so powerful and so connected with it. And it doesn't matter if you're in Indonesia or in the UK or you're in Bali, Australia or wherever, Hawaii, wherever you're surfing. You know, it's that thing of just getting out in the ocean, being connected with nature, and we're just we are further and further away from that. You know, there's so many distractions and emails and stuff that we've got to do, and screens and hooked to our screens and stuff. So it's and I really resonate with that. I haven't found another activity that makes me feel that good and loose, and I'm just sort of, when I go down to Cornwall for a week, I'm very relaxed by the end of the week, because it's just, it gives, like, the environment gives you back so much. And surfing, it's great physical workout, but like you say, for your mental health, and it just makes you feel good and makes you smile. It's just something really sort of primal about it. That I totally agree.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever you believe in, whether it's it's nature or some sort of spiritual thing, it doesn't matter. But it is something bigger than us, and that's an amazing feeling.
Awesome, mate. So if people are listening to this and sort of keen to start out, and we'll go on to the wave pools next. But if somebody has never been surfing, sort of what spots around the UK or in Europe, sort of not too far, would you sort of recommend that people go and check out some good spots?
Yeah, if you're a total beginner, then you want to find yourself in a major large beach. Obviously, you don't want a reef break or anything like that.
Yeah.
And definitely get yourself to a surf school, because by and large they are really good. I think what we have an issue is that next step, actually, of becoming intermediate. We've really got nothing there. By the time you get better than an intermediate, then you're talking to people that know what they're doing, and you're getting tips from them.
Yeah.
But that intermediate stage is quite hard. So places like Saunton in North Devon is really good. A bunch of beaches around UK. So even the beaches that are quite hard, quite good surf. As a beginner, you won't need to go out the back, so you can still have fun on those, like Croyd's in North Devon or Newquay in Cornwall. Those are all great beaches, but something long and sandy.
Awesome.
That's what you want.
Now I'll have to ask you, because I didn't even know it existed, but I've heard that on the east coast of England, which I'm a lot closer to than I am on from Cornwall and Devon, but some people occasionally, when the waves are right, surf in sort of like Norfolk and Suffolk at Cromer, and Cromer seems to be quite popular. Is that a place you've been? And
no, I haven't. No, look, I've been around the world actually with surfing.
Well, Cromer's the ultimate.
Most places, but I've never been to the east of England. But I'm sort of aware of some of the reefs that are out there.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the beginner beaches at all. But it's sort of world class waves around there actually, and predominant wind is offshore. But it's not particularly consistent.
It's just not consistent. But when you go on Magic Seaweed, which is a great website that people can check out, where it tells you the waves, it's normally like 0 to 1 foot, 0 to 1 foot, and then once every couple of weeks, it'll be like 2 to 4 or 4 to 6, and occasionally it's there. So that's cool.
That's it.
You said about there's not a lot in the market for improving as an intermediate
I would
surfer.
say there's literally nothing.
So why Yeah, why do you think that is? Is it literally? Is it just a money thing? Is it like because there's a lot of money in obviously beginners and people wanting to try surfing, but why isn't there something for intermediate? And do you feel like there's a lot of surfers out there who are sort of stuck and plateau and get to a certain level and they just can't seem to improve?
Yeah, I think there's loads of surfers like that. I see them all the time, and I think it's a real shame. But the main reason I think is that if you're a beginner and you're going for a surf lesson, it doesn't really matter what the conditions are, because you're only going to be that white water in 1 foot. In 1 foot deep water,
Yeah.
and so that's fine. But as an intermediate, you're going to have to surf green waves, to clean waves, and green waves, as we call them, to improve. And what you need to do is really start understanding how to bottom turn and top turn. Those are the fundamentals of surfing.
Okay.
Without knowing how to get at the bottom of the wave, how to do a bottom turn which gets you up to the top, and at the top how to come back down. Without that, you can't do anything.
Okay.
Or you can simply ride along the middle of the wave and effectively just kind of wiggle along, and that's it. And a lot of people do that.
So another tip, if you could, because I read one of your posts on your Instagram page. I think was it for the bottom turn. Because obviously a lot of people are, straight line and still practicing or not able to surf enough to improve. But if someone's at that point where they want to learn the turns, was it the bottom turn where you sort of, I think I read one of your posts where you described it as a waiter and trying to hold a plate or something as you're turning?
Yeah,
Was that right?
So that's a backside bottom turn. So
Okay. Yeah.
the first thing you would do is definitely not a backside bottom turn. Well, not definitely. You'd go. It depends which way the wave is going.
Okay.
But it's going to be easier for you to go front side. So front side means that it's on your toe side. So your stomach is facing the wave rather than your back is facing the wave.
Okay.
So look, on the front side, it's very much about going out a little bit further in front of the wave than you think you need to.
Yeah.
And then crouching down and pressing on your toes and engaging that rail on your toe side to go back up the wave.
Okay.
As you get a bit more improved, you can start trying with your trailing arm to touch the water. Even if you don't get to touch the water, you'll bend down more than you currently do. A lot of intermediates, beginners, are standing too straight. Yeah. And so that's what you would do on the front side bottom turn. And then on the back side, absolutely, as you get to the bottom of the turn, you again want to come out in front of the wave a little bit more than you think, so almost into the flat water.
Okay.
And then you turn, you look at the top of the wave,
yeah.
And it's almost like you've got this big round platter in your hand, like a serving platter, and you're turning to give it to someone. So it's your hands and your shoulders have to be moving in the same direction, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
Towards the top of the wave. So it's like turning and giving the tray to someone slightly behind you, and that will shoot you right up to the top of the wave. It's
awesome.
Actually a really, really helpful thing.
That must be a hell of a feeling the first time you start pulling those off. That must feel like you've really, really improved. Like it just opens up a lot more doors, doesn't it? Once you can pull those couple of maneuvers off.
For sure, and it's 90% of surfing. If you look at the world tour, I mean,
yeah.
That's still 90% of what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're getting points on it as well.
Yeah.
And then you've obviously got aerials and stuff like that, which is on top of that.
Yeah, awesome, mate. So the wave pool, which is Surf Snowdonia, that's what I want to ask you about, and that's definitely a place I'm really keen to check out. It looks amazing, and there's a lot of videos that go around on it on social media, so people might be aware of it. But if people are listening to this and not heard of it, could you sort of briefly explain what it is, Surf Snowdonia, and how different is the experience of riding a wave in a pool, compared to riding a wave in the ocean, and is that, because it's so consistent, is it a good place for beginners to start?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it is a pretty amazing place. It really is. It's about the size of a football pitch. It's sort of a rectangle lake, man-made lake, and then in the middle of it is a pier. And what they do is underneath the pier, they use ski lift technology to pull a foil, apparently it's a foil. I mean, you can't see it, but apparently it's something like that sort of shape. And then they obviously have the bottom of the wave pool in a certain sort of reef format, so it goes very shallow, then it goes deep, then shallow, etc. So it pushes all that energy, and what it does is that it creates a wave that goes along the pier, and you're always surfing towards the pier. So you're surfing between the white water and the pier, which is, between 20 feet and 10 feet, depending on where the wave is.
Okay.
And so you've always got energy. It doesn't dissipate.
Yeah.
And that's why you've got a powerful wave that goes all the way through. At the end of that wave, you've got a beginner's base, which is white water that kind of then reforms into a little bit of green water as well. So it's absolutely perfect for learning to paddle in, your timing, stand up. You then have the sort of intermediate sections as well, which are another good place to sort of dial in your dropping in kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got the advanced wave, which is the drop in, and then obviously a wave, just like a real wave in the ocean.
Okay.
So it's an amazing feat. I when I'm on the wave, I forget it's not real.
Okay.
Yeah. The takeoff is different. Is slightly different, and there's no need probably to go into the intricacies of that now. But there's certain little ways of doing it, and they explain to you, which direction to paddle, etc. But once you're on the wave, it feels exactly like a mellow reef break.
Yeah.
And the reason why it feels like a reef break is that it's kind of got constant power. It's not like a lot of power where it's really shallow and then it sort of gets fat. It's just constant.
Okay, cool. You've also got the Wave as well, which is opening in Bristol. Are they doing anything different to Surf Snowdonia? Is it a similar setup? Is it looking like is it a bigger pool, or is there more going on there, or is it a similar setup to what they've got in Wales?
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm surfing it on the 4th of November. It's the first day that it opens officially.
Great.
Yeah, I was a crowdfunder about 5 years ago. I mean, I just like £100 in, or something like that, and it gave me a 2-hour session. So yeah, on the first day it opens, I'll be surfing that, and it's by the same company in Spain that do the technology called Wave Garden, and this is like 2.0, so it's a different format. It's a cove shape, so it's like a oyster shell kind of shape lake.
Yeah.
And it works very differently. And actually, interestingly enough, I've tried to sort of look, but I don't exactly know how it works. I'm really interested to find out. But what I do know is that there is a little bit of a barrel section on it as well, which is
cool.
super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you can start practicing that, that's going to be amazing. And apparently they've got an air section as well, 1 or 2 air sections.
Cool.
So where you can basically hit the lip, and it's a good place to project off the top of the wave.
Awesome. I look forward to some awesome pictures on your Instagram page.
Don't hold your breath about the airs, mate.
Yeah. Oh, nice one, mate. That sounds really cool. And so do you see, do you see that just it's a guaranteed winner? Like, it will be popular, it will do well. And do you see more opening up? Do you think that's something that will start happening, and just the overall popularity increasing?
Yeah, I think so. I'm still surprised how many people that I surf with, in North Devon and Cornwall, are sort of haven't been or haven't tried, and are kind of sort of not that into it. These are kind of surfers that are decent surfers.
Okay.
And that's quite funny to me, because actually it's a lot better than they realise, and I've certainly progressed a lot more than some of the people that have never been over the last 3-4 years, which is really interesting.
Definitely, I can see that.
Yeah.
Is it like? Yeah. Is it a thing of like, once you've been surfing so long and you are very good? Is it a thing of? Do you think people think that it's sort of a bit of a waste of time, or they're not going to get much out of the experience? But actually, it's the opposite of that. The waves are perfect, and you can have a really great experience, even if you're a very good surfer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, look, the World Tour guys are doing it, aren't they? At Kelly's Surf Ranch.
Yeah, which looks amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just people's perception, and I think they just need to be more open about it. And
Yeah.
I think there is definitely. I think some people are a little bit concerned about people getting good and then invading their waves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think it'll take. I think as much as it'll do that, it'll take people away from waves. And plus, the hardcore spots, you really need to understand those tides, etc. And actually, you could be quite a good, decent surfer in a wave pool, only surfed in a wave pool, and it would still take you years to understand how those tides and those places work, and it would still be very intimidating go to some of those sort of spots I'm not going to mention.
Yeah.
You know, even if you can actually surf well,
I'm sure.
but,
Yeah.
You know.
Awesome, mate. So going on to your Instagram page, which is actually how we first got in touch, because I really wanted to do a podcast based around surfing, and I found your page. And so how did you come up with the idea for the surfboard reviews, and how did that idea come about, and what's the feedback been since you started the page up?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I purely did the page for myself and for no other reason, right? And I've just been really surprised with the response, and people just really interested in it.
Yeah.
And where I'm coming from is called at zero ego, as in ZERO, zero ego board reviews, ego board reviews. So basically, the name suggests is that I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm not a professional surfer by any means, and actually, what I am is a middle-aged man, 80 kilos plus, that just loves surfing, and that's progressing really well, and not everyone has the opportunity to be surfing this wave and trying so many different boards. And I also realized that when I've seen reviews on boards, because we're all interested, all surfers that are into surfing are interested in new boards, and the reviews that I see are basically someone talking about a board, which is useful but only to a point.
Yeah.
And then I'll see some sort of 23-year-old with a six-pack in America that's professional going, hey, this board is sick, and does an air, and it's like, great, but even if I wanted to surf that board, what size do I get?
Yeah.
So basically, that's why I wanted. And then also, hardly any good video footage or photos were shown, because it's quite hard to get that stuff. But obviously, at places like Surf Snowdonia, you've got photographers around the sides taking photos of everyone, so you can easily get photos. You can hire them for filming as well, and so you can really get very clear footage. And my idea was that I would review different boards. They have demo boards which I've used since then, which has been really cool. I've got some boards from different places to review as well, which has been really exciting for me. And what's good about it is that I can review it, and then you can see me surfing it along with the other boards that I surf, and you can kind of tell if it's bullshit or not, because if I'm saying, hey, this board's really great, but actually I'm like falling in every second, or digging the rail, then it obviously isn't for me. And so I feel like I've been able to be very, very honest, because you can kind of see the surfing. And so that's where it came about. And I feel like I've really improved by surfing lots of different boards as well. I think there is a time where you shouldn't surf too many in the beginning, but once you get to a certain level, trying lots of different boards, and even things like mid-length boards, which I've never surfed before, they've just given me a totally different aspect on surfing, and I love it. I love surfing a longer board now as well, even though I'm now surfing a bit more performance boards. I love getting out a mid-length board as well.
Yeah, awesome, mate. I love it, and it's such a great page, really positive. Like your enthusiasm and passion for surfing really shines through, and I'm sure it will inspire others to just to take it up. And like you say, for you personally, it's good because it keeps you focused with your surf, and you're challenging yourself by using these different boards and testing them out. So yeah, it's just a win-win for everyone, mate. So yeah, it's awesome.
Nice. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So what are your what are your future plans for anything for the page or for your surfing? Your own goals. Have you got anywhere you'd love to go and surf or check out? Yeah, and what are your general plans for the future?
Yeah, look, I did a lot of traveling when I was younger, even though I didn't surf very well, but I would still get out there,
Yeah.
and I've got kids now as well, and it's now costs four times the ticket rather than one time
Yeah.
the ticket and stuff like that, and so it's harder to do. But I definitely would like to do a bit more traveling, because I feel like that in the last few years I've done much less of.
Yeah.
For my surfing. So I've surfed a lot of places in the world, but I've never done South America. So I'm just really keen to get down into South America and surf down there. And then really excited about the wave in Bristol, because it is, as I said, it's version 2.0. It's going to be it's a very different wave, even more performance orientated, but you still have lots of sections for beginners as well. So for me, I feel like I'm just improving my surfing every day, and I think that's a really amazing thing, because I started at 19. I don't think I'm particularly natural at surfing, and it's just because I love it that I've become actually kind of okay at it, and it's just a great feeling. So this is not a kind of a story from someone who's just naturally good at something. This is, hey, look, anyone can do it, and
Yeah.
you can do it at any age as well. I see people.
Yeah, it's great.
I saw a boyfriend and girlfriend out surfing in Brighton. I was there for work, and they were surfing literally like 30-centimeter wave. I was out there paddleboarding just to get a bit of exercise on flat water, and he was pushing her in. They were like 20 years old or something. He was pushing her in, and she was so excited, and he was so excited for her. And I paddled over to them, and I said, look, and I'd just been over to Indonesia for a week, actually.
Yeah.
So I had done one of those trips. I said, look, I've been away for a week, and I've just not heard anyone as excited as you guys are. It's amazing. It just got me really stoked. So you can be any level and just love surfing.
That's awesome. And it can be something that you didn't know you would fall in love with. So you don't, if you could be 30s or 40s or 50s, you've never surfed. Well, try it, and you might really surprise yourself, and it might end up being your thing and something that you actually end up doing a lot. So yeah, that's really inspiring for people to hear. Good. Awesome, mate. So at the end of each podcast, I always go on to the areas of inspiration, and that's a book that you've read that you'd recommend to others, a film or a documentary that you've watched, and then a person that has inspired you. So do you have a book that you would recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of books. It's hard to choose, which one, right? But there's one. It's not. I don't know. It's kind of an unusual one, but it's called Angry White Pajamas, and it's by a guy called Robert Twigger. What it's about is that it's this English guy who it's it's not fictional. It's a factual book, and he moves to Japan to teach English, and he's living in this tiny flat with two other guys, and they just literally just slobs. They're doing nothing, and they get fed up of it. So what they decide to do is this Yoshikan Aikido, and then they find out that you can become a black belt in a year if you do it every day, if you give your job up.
Okay.
And you do it every day. It's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours a day, and you do some weekends and stuff like that. Yeah. So they decide to do it, and I think two of them fall out, but he carries on and completes it. And actually, I like mixed martial arts, and I do Krav Maga myself, so it's a bit interesting for me for that. But it's not really about the fighting at all. What's really interesting is his sort of anecdotes and understanding Japanese culture, because I love Japan. I had some friends at uni that were Japanese, and I was always been fascinated by Japanese culture, but never really understood it. Yeah. And I think that book really gives you some really interesting understanding about the Japanese culture, and it's really fascinating.
That sounds really cool, and such a different book, and that's what I love about this so this is episode 26, and I've never had the same book twice, so it's really, really cool. Love that, mate. Really good. What about a film or a documentary that you've watched?
Yeah, I actually love documentaries. I watch documentaries all the time, but when you asked me that, and actually it was a film that came to mind rather than a documentary, and it's Brazil, and it's written and directed by Terry Gilliam, I don't know what it is. It's 1988 or something. It's a really, really old film, but it's basically like it's a futuristic film. It's a satire of a bureaucratic, dysfunctional industrial world. I feel like we're really living it now, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's just such an amazing. It's just such an amazing film. That sort of just portrays how crazy life is, but still hope as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. And I never watch films twice, but I watch that every sort of 5 years. I'll watch it.
Oh, well, so that must be good. Awesome. Cool. Nice one, mate. And what about a person that's inspired you?
Is this someone that people know, or is this someone that
It's true. You know what? I just leave, and if you've got a couple of people, that's cool. I'd just leave it up to, to you. I mean, it could be somebody like in your personal life, or it could be somebody who's inspired you through surfing, or just someone, who you'd love listening to or watching on YouTube. It could be anyone. That maybe somebody could jump online and check out themselves as well. But whatever's personal to you, mate, whatever you want to say is cool.
Oh my goodness! I'm sorry, I'm going to disappoint you because they can't check this.
No, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because a lot of people will say family or friends or whoever. So it doesn't have to be, but whoever you want. It can be someone you know or someone you don't.
Yeah, look, it's two people. One, everyone knows this person. I'll give you very quickly that, and then it's a personal friend of mine, but which I'll talk to you about in a second. But Obama is one, and it's a very obvious one, but it's not for the obvious reasons. I mean, yeah, he was, I think he was, did a really good job. But the reason why I think he's such an amazing person, and I'm sure, he made lots of mistakes as well, obviously, like everyone does. But what a tough job.
Oh, yeah. It's an impossible job.
To come anywhere near looking like you've done a good job. And I can't think of anyone that's come out looking like they've done a decent job and tried hard as much as he's done. And especially where we are today in the UK and in the US, it's just crazy. So him with regards to just what a difficult job he had.
Yeah.
and how well he tried at it.
He could have done with a bit of surfing. That would have helped him.
I think so. I mean, he's from Hawaii as well.
Yeah.
And body surfing, fair enough. But I think he needs to get on board a bit more.
Yeah.
And then the other person is a lady called Geneva Bahrain. She's 35, and so I think of her as a daughter, except for she's only 10 years younger than me. So that's okay. It's not actually possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, she has had. She's a friend of mine, but she has had such a difficult, childhood, and most people, I think, that would have had that would have, been broken, which would not have been their fault, or addicted to drugs or whatever. But she has just become this just force of nature that is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And she's just taken on 3 kids that are brothers and sisters that she's looking after, and they're just doing amazing things, and I just think she's amazing. So, she's tougher than anyone I've ever encountered in my Krav Maga class or anything like that.
Yeah. It's a different, like you say, a different level of toughness. Yeah, that's that's really cool, mate. That's it. Thank you very much, and just keep doing what you're doing, because, like I say, I love the page, and I really feel like your page will inspire people to take up surfing, and like we spoke about earlier, like bridging that gap for them intermediate surfers. So you're helping beginners, you're helping intermediates, and as long as it makes you happy, mate, and it really looks like it does, you look like you love surfing, that will definitely rub off on other people. So yeah, good luck with it, and
thanks, man.
I just really hope just keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, mate. And thanks for the podcast. They're amazing. I've listened to more than half of them now.
Oh man,
and
cool.
they're really, really good. So really enjoying them.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, really appreciate that, mate. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Sasha.
Take it easy, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Cool, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll catch you on the next one.